Judge Patterson doesn't know who he's just insulted. The gavel strikes oak. The sound echoes through Veterans Court like a gunshot. Colonel James Mitchell stands in orange jumpsuit and shackles. His back stays straight. His chin stays level. 30 years of military bearing doesn't break for courthouse theater. "State your name for the record," Patterson says. His voice drips condescension. "James Mitchell." "Address?" "Currently detained." Patterson's eyebrows lift. "Watch your tone, son. This is my courtroom." Mitchell's hands rest behind his back. The handcuffs don't rattle. He learned long ago that showing weakness invites more pain. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead. Papers shuffle at the prosecutor's table. Someone coughs in the gallery. "You're here for disrespecting the flag," Patterson continues, "disrupting a patriotic rally, making a scene." The words hang in stale courtroom air. Mitchell's breathing stays controlled, in and out, like counting seconds between artillery rounds. The man in handcuffs has seen worse enemies than this. The stenographer's fingers dance across her machine. Click, click, click. The sound marks time in this theater of injustice. Mrs. Rodriguez has worked these courts for 27 years. She knows when something feels wrong. District Attorney Wilson rises from his seat. His suit costs more than most people's rent. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Your Honor, the defendant showed clear disregard for American values. Veterans like him should know better." Veterans like him. The phrase cuts through silence. Mitchell's jaw tightens by millimeters. Patterson nods like Wilson just quoted scripture. Bailiff Cruz shifts his weight near the door. His hand stays close to his weapon. "Tell me about this Memorial Day incident," Patterson demands. Wilson loves the spotlight. His voice carries that practiced politician's cadence. "Families were honoring our fallen heroes. Children were singing patriotic songs. The defendant disrupted this sacred ceremony." The prosecutor's table holds neat stacks of papers, evidence folders marked with colored tabs. Wilson picks up a file like he's holding sacred text. The pages whisper as he turns them. Witnesses say Mitchell became agitated during the ceremony. He questioned the organizers' methods. He caused a disturbance that forced police intervention. Mitchell's service record sits locked in Pentagon computers. His Medal of Honor citation gathers dust in a frame somewhere. His prosecutorial credentials remain buried in federal databases. But here now he's just another black man in chains. "What's your version?" Patterson asks. "I attended to honor fallen soldiers," Mitchell says. His voice carries decades of command presence. "I questioned certain tactics used at the event." "Questioned how?" "I asked why Gold Star families were seated behind donors." The courtroom stills. Even the air conditioning seems to pause. Wilson's folder closes with a soft thud. Patterson's drumming fingers stop mid-beat. "You disrupted a patriotic ceremony over seating?" Patterson's voice rises. "You think you know better than the organizers?" Mitchell's shoulders stay square. "I think Gold Star mothers deserve front-row seats." The truth hangs in recycled air. Wilson shifts his papers. Cruz adjusts his belt. The stenographer's fingers keep moving. Click, click, click. Recording everything for posterity. What happens next will redefine patriotism in this courthouse forever. The charges scroll across Patterson's computer screen. Blue text on white background. Each line adds another year to potential sentence. His mouse clicks through options like he's ordering lunch. The defendant shows exactly the kind of divisive thinking that undermines community unity, Wilson says. He puts his personal agenda above patriotic tradition. Patterson nods, his decision already made. The gavel waits in his right hand like a weapon ready to strike. "Mr. Mitchell, your attitude problem is becoming clear." "I have no attitude problem, Your Honor." "Don't interrupt me." Patterson's voice hardens. "You show no remorse, no respect for this court or the community you disrupted. Wilson adds from his table. Your Honor, we have multiple witness statements. The defendant's behavior was aggressive and confrontational. Define aggressive, Mitchell says. You questioned authority figures in front of children, Wilson replies. You created discord at a sacred ceremony. I asked why Gold Star families paid fees for front row seats. The words hit like artillery rounds. Wilson's confident smile wavers. Patterson's fingers drum against the bench. Tap, tap, tap. A rhythm of power and impatience. Fees? Patterson asks. The organizers charged Gold Star mothers $300 each for premium seating, Mitchell explains, while corporate donors received front row access as part of their sponsorship packages. Mrs. Rodriguez's fingers pause over her stenotype machine. 27 years of transcription. Thousands of cases recorded. She recognizes something in Mitchell's demeanor, the way he holds himself under pressure. That's irrelevant to your disruptive behavior, Wilson says quickly. Is it? Mitchell's voice carries prosecutorial precision. When veterans' families are treated as second-class citizens at their own memorial? Cruz's keys jangle as he steps closer. The sound cuts through courtroom silence. His hand rests on his equipment belt. Radio, handcuffs, weapons designed to maintain order. You don't get to decide how patriotic ceremonies are organized, Patterson says. You're not the authority here. I never claimed to be. Your actions suggest otherwise. Patterson leans forward in his chair. The leather creaks under his weight. Veterans like you sometimes come home with chips on your shoulders. Veterans like you. Again. Mitchell's hands remain steady behind his back. The cuffs catch light from overhead fixtures, metal against skin, the weight familiar from other battles in other places. What does that mean exactly? Mitchell asks. It means some soldiers think their service gives them special privileges, Patterson explains. Special consideration, the right to question civilian authority. The air conditioning cycles on. Cold air moves through ceiling vents. The sound covers smaller noises, breathing, heartbeats, the quiet fury building in the gallery where other veterans sit watching. I've never requested special consideration, Mitchell says. Your disruption of that rally says otherwise. I asked a question about seating arrangements. You caused a scene that required police intervention. Wilson shuffles through his evidence folders, each document carefully organized for maximum impact. Your Honor, the defendant's military background may explain his confrontational approach to civilian authority. The words stack like concrete blocks. Each accusation builds higher walls around Mitchell's future. Mrs. Rodriguez watches the systematic destruction of a decorated veteran's reputation. Furthermore, Wilson continues, we have concerns about the defendant's potential for violence. Military training combined with obvious anger issues creates public safety risks. I have no history of violence, Mitchell states. Military service is violence training, Patterson replies. Killing people and breaking things, as they say. The courtroom fills with toxic assumptions. Military veterans as ticking time bombs. Service members as damaged goods. Heroes transformed into threats by judicial prejudice. Cruz's radio crackles with static. Dispatcher voices leak through in fragments. The bailiff's hand moves closer to his weapon, prepared for violence that exists only in Patterson's imagination. Your Honor, Mitchell says carefully, I request legal representation. Public Defender's office is backed up, Patterson replies. Court-appointed counsel will be assigned within 30 days. 30 days. The number echoes off painted walls. Wilson smiles at his papers. Justice delayed becomes justice denied. I also request permission to make a phone call. Denied. You'll follow standard booking procedures. Mitchell's breathing stays controlled. Combat veterans learn patience the hard way. Hostile environments, unreasonable authority, survival through strategic thinking. Stand for sentencing, Patterson commands. The chains around Mitchell's ankles scrape against linoleum. He rises with military precision, back straight, head high. The orange jumpsuit can't diminish 30 years of service. Wilson clears his throat. Your Honor, given the defendant's apparent lack of remorse and the serious nature of undermining patriotic values, we recommend maximum penalty. Patterson's gavel lifts above the bench. The wooden hammer catches fluorescent light. Judgment waits in suspended motion. Mitchell's fate balances on one man's prejudice. Before I impose sentence, Patterson says, I want to address your attitude problem directly. His chair swivels as he leans back. The mechanism squeaks under pressure. His fingers interlock across his stomach, a pose of absolute authority. Young man, you seem to think you know better than everyone else, that your opinion matters more than community standards. Mitchell's expression doesn't change. Decades of briefings with hostile commanders taught him emotional control. The stenographer's machine keeps clicking, recording prejudice for posterity. Military service doesn't make you special, Patterson continues. It doesn't give you the right to disrupt civilian ceremonies or question legitimate authority. The lecture builds like Stormfront, each word designed to diminish, to reduce, to transform hero into problem. Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes stay focused on Mitchell's face. Something about his bearing suggests hidden depths. Patterson's phone buzzes with an incoming call. He glances at the display, then ignores it. Local politics take precedence over federal intrusion. What branch did you serve in? Patterson asks. Army. Rank? Colonel. Retired. The title hangs in courtroom air. Patterson's eyebrows lift slightly. Wilson's pen stops moving across his legal pad. Cruz's radio crackles with distant voices. Colonel, Patterson says slowly. Well, Colonel, your military rank means nothing in my courtroom. Here, you're just another defendant who disrupted the peace. Mrs. Rodriguez's fingers dance across her machine, recording everything, including the systematic destruction of constitutional rights disguised as judicial authority. I've seen too many veterans use their service as an excuse for bad behavior, Patterson continues, thinking they deserve special treatment. The accusations multiply like cancer cells, each assumption more toxic than the last. Mitchell stands silent under the assault, letting Patterson reveal his true nature for the record. Patterson's next ruling will trigger something unstoppable. Given the defendant's continued defiance, Patterson announces, I'm adding contempt of court to the charges. The gavel strikes once, sharp, final. The sound echoes through the courtroom like a gunshot. Wilson's smile spreads across his face. Another victory for law and order. Furthermore, Patterson continues, I'm upgrading the original charges. Disorderly conduct becomes inciting public discord. Disturbing the peace becomes threatening public safety. Each upgraded charge carries heavier penalties. Misdemeanors transform into serious offenses. Mitchell's future narrows with every word from Patterson's mouth. Your Honor, Mitchell says, I request to see the specific statutes. Denied. You had your chance to cooperate. Wilson stands at his table, papers arranged for dramatic effect. Your Honor, the defendant's pattern of questioning authority demonstrates ongoing public safety concerns. Agreed. Bail is denied. The words hit like sledgehammer blows. No bail, no release, no chance to prepare defense from outside. Mitchell's jaw tightens by millimeters, the only sign of emotion breaking through military discipline. Transport to county detention will arrive within the hour, Patterson says. The defendant will be held pending trial. Cruz approaches with additional restraints. Leg irons, waist chain, the full ensemble for maximum humiliation. Metal clinks against metal as he sorts through his equipment. Is this necessary? Mrs. Rodriguez asks quietly. Standard procedure for violent offenders, Cruz replies, loud enough for everyone to hear. Violent offenders. The label sticks like tar. Mitchell has never been convicted of violence, never been charged with violence. but Cruz's words paint him as dangerous threat. "Turn around," Cruz commands. Mitchell complies with military precision. The waist chain locks around his midsection. Steel links connect to handcuffs. Every movement becomes calculated effort. "I request permission to contact my attorney," Mitchell says. "You don't have an attorney," Patterson replies. "Public defender will be assigned when scheduling permits." "I request permission to contact federal authorities." Patterson's eyebrows lift. "Federal authorities? What federal authorities?" "Department of Justice. Civil Rights Division." The words hang in courtroom air like smoke from explosions. Wilson's confident expression wavers. Cruz's hands pause over the ankle restraints. "Why would you contact civil rights?" Patterson asks. "Constitutional violations require federal oversight." "What constitutional violations?" "Denial of counsel, excessive bail, systematic bias in charging decisions." Mrs. Rodriguez's fingers fly across her stenotype machine. Constitutional violations, federal oversight. Her 27 years of court experience recognize dangerous territory. "You're not a lawyer," Patterson says. "I didn't claim to be." "Then you don't know constitutional law." "I know my rights." Wilson intervenes from his table. "Your Honor, the defendant is clearly trying to intimidate this court with frivolous federal threats." Cruz finishes attaching the ankle restraints, short chain between Mitchell's feet, designed for shuffling steps and maximum difficulty. The bailiff enjoys his power over decorated veteran. "Federal threats aren't frivolous," Mitchell says quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" Patterson demands. "It means civil rights violations have federal consequences." The temperature in the courtroom seems to drop. Mrs. Rodriguez watches Mitchell's face. Something in his bearing suggests knowledge beyond typical defendant understanding. "Are you threatening this court?" Patterson asks. "I'm stating legal facts." "You're in no position to state anything." Constitutional rights don't disappear with arrest. Cruz tests the restraints, tugging chains, checking locks, ensuring maximum security for minimum threat. His radio crackles with transport coordination. "Your federal threats don't scare me," Patterson says. "This is local jurisdiction, local authority. Federal jurisdiction supersedes local authority in civil rights cases." Wilson objects loudly. "Your Honor, the defendant is clearly coached in legal terminology designed to disrupt proceedings." "Coached by whom?" Patterson asks. "Unknown co-conspirators, anti-government activists, professional agitators." The accusations multiply like virus infections, each assumption more paranoid than the last. Mitchell stands silent under the assault, letting them reveal their true nature. "Transport is 5 minutes out," Cruz announces. Patterson nods satisfaction. Problem solved. Troublemaker removed. Order restored to his courtroom. "Mr. Mitchell," he says, "your federal threats and constitutional arguments won't help you in county lockup." Mitchell's breathing stays controlled. In and out, like counting seconds between artillery rounds. His wrists rest comfortable in the restraints. He's worn worse chains in worse places. "The phone call you denied will happen anyway," Mitchell says quietly. The words carry absolute certainty. Not threat, not bluster. Simple statement of fact. Patterson's confident smile wavers slightly. Mrs. Rodriguez saves her stenotype file. Constitutional violations on official record. Federal oversight mentioned multiple times. Her professional instincts suggest major problems ahead. The phone call Patterson denied will happen anyway. Mrs. Rodriguez watches the transport van pull away through courthouse windows, blue and white vehicle disappearing into afternoon traffic. Mitchell's chains glinting in sunlight before doors slam shut. Her computer screen glows with familiar databases. 27 years of court service earned her access to multiple systems. Attorney registrations, federal court records, background verification tools. She types carefully. James Mitchell. Army. Retired. The basic search returns standard information. Military service confirmed. No criminal history. Clean background check from 3 years ago. But something feels incomplete. Like reading a redacted document with crucial lines blacked out. Patterson's voice echoes from the bench. Next case. People versus Rodriguez. Domestic disturbance. The machinery of justice grinds forward. Next defendant, next victim. Mrs. Rodriguez types while Patterson lectures another minority defendant about respect and authority. Her screen refreshes with new results. James Mitchell, attorney registration. The entry makes her pause. Federal court admission. Department of Justice. Current status, active. Her heartbeat quickens. She double-checks the information. Same James Mitchell. Same birth date. Same military service dates. But this James Mitchell carries federal prosecutor credentials. Wilson organizes papers at his table. Evidence folders from the Mitchell case. Witness statements. Police reports. The prosecution looks solid from his perspective. Mrs. Rodriguez opens another database. DOJ Employee Directory. Internal access requires verification. She uses her federal court stenographer credentials. The system accepts her login. James Mitchell, Civil Rights Division. Special assignment, Judicial Misconduct and Systematic Bias Investigations. Current cases, classified, security clearance, top secret. The revelation hits like lightning. She stares at her screen in disbelief. Federal prosecutor, civil rights investigator. Currently assigned to judicial misconduct cases. Mrs. Rodriguez? Patterson calls. Are you getting all this? Yes, Your Honor. Her fingers resume typing automatically. Muscle memory from decades of transcription. But her mind races through implications. Patterson just arrested a federal prosecutor investigating judicial misconduct. The irony would be funny if the consequences weren't so serious. She glances around the courtroom. Wilson shuffling papers. Cruz checking his equipment. Patterson lecturing the next defendant. None of them realize what just happened. Her phone has federal contact numbers programmed for emergencies. Court stenographers sometimes need to verify credentials for out-of-state attorneys. Professional courtesy calls to Washington. She dials information. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. The connection routes through multiple security layers. Government phones require authentication. Static crackles before clear tones emerge. Civil Rights Division, Director's Office. This is Carmen Rodriguez, Federal Court Stenographer. I need to verify attorney status for James Mitchell. Please hold. Elevator music fills her earpiece. Generic instrumental versions of patriotic songs. The irony cuts deep. She watches Patterson deny another defendant's request for adequate counsel. Ma'am? James Mitchell is an active federal prosecutor, currently assigned to civil rights violations and judicial misconduct cases. May I ask why you're calling? Mrs. Rodriguez glances around the courtroom. Patterson's voice booms across the space. Wilson's confident gestures. Cruz's satisfied expression. He was just arrested and detained on misdemeanor charges in local court. Silence on the federal line. Then, please repeat that. Federal prosecutor James Mitchell was arrested on charges of disorderly conduct and contempt of court. He's being held without bail. Ma'am, I need to transfer you to our director immediately. Please don't hang up. Another click. Another hold. Mrs. Rodriguez's heart pounds against her ribs. Federal prosecutors don't get arrested on local charges without causing massive problems. Patterson schedules the next defendant for immediate sentencing, rushing through cases like assembly line worker, making examples of uncooperative minorities. This is Director Sarah Chen. Who am I speaking with? The voice carries absolute authority. Mrs. Rodriguez sits straighter. 27 years of government service recognizes power when it speaks. Carmen Rodriguez, court stenographer. I need to report that federal prosecutor James Mitchell is being held in local detention. On what charges? Disorderly conduct, contempt of court, disturbing the peace. The judge denied bail and federal contact. Long pause. Computer keys clicking in Washington. Database searches happening in real time. Mrs. Rodriguez, Prosecutor Mitchell is currently working undercover on federal civil rights investigations. Which court is holding him? District Veterans Court. Judge Harold Patterson presiding. More computer activity. Urgent voices in the background. Federal machinery awakening to crisis. Ma'am, this court is currently under federal investigation for systematic civil rights violations. Mr. Mitchell's detention constitutes obstruction of justice. The confirmation hits like bomb blast. Under federal investigation. Systematic civil rights violations. Mitchell wasn't random defendant. He was federal investigator. What should I do? Mrs. Rodriguez asks. Document everything. Save all transcripts. Federal marshals are en route. Do not alert anyone to this conversation. The line goes dead. Mrs. Rodriguez stares at her phone. Federal marshals en route. Investigation blown wide open. Constitutional crisis developing in real time. Wilson approaches her desk. What was that phone call about? Verifying out-of-state attorney credentials, she lies smoothly. For which case? Traffic court tomorrow, standard procedure. He nods and returns to his table, satisfied with mundane explanation. No idea that federal authority just learned about Mitchell's detention. Patterson bangs his gavel. Court will recess for 30 minutes. The judge disappears into chambers, probably calling political supporters, boasting about putting troublemaker in his place. No idea that federal investigators now know his location. Mrs. Rodriguez saves her work with trembling fingers. Every transcript, every ruling, every denial of constitutional rights, all preserved for federal review. Cruz checks his radio. Transport confirmations, detention processing, administrative details of destroying federal prosecutors' cover operation. In the gallery, other veterans sit quietly. Old soldiers who served their country, young soldiers still carrying invisible wounds. They watched one of their own get railroaded by corrupt system. Mrs. Rodriguez's computer shows new search results. James Mitchell's federal cases, prosecutions of corrupt judges, civil rights violations, systematic bias investigations. Patterson's courthouse appears in multiple case files. Subject of federal investigation for 18 months. Citizen complaints about racial bias. Statistical evidence of constitutional violations. Mitchell wasn't random defendant disrupting patriotic rally. He was federal prosecutor gathering evidence at community event. Patterson just arrested the investigator documenting his crimes. Her phone buzzes with text message. Unknown number. Federal area code. Maintain normal operations. Document everything. Help arrives soon. Mrs. Rodriguez deletes the message. Federal communications leave no digital traces, but the confirmation settles her nerves. Washington knows. Help comes. Wilson and Cruz coordinate lunch plans, celebrating successful prosecution, unaware that federal marshals coordinate their response from secure facilities. Patterson returns from chambers. Confident smile. Political victory achieved. No idea that his judicial career just ended with single phone call. The next 30 minutes will change everything in this courthouse. Mrs. Rodriguez just found something that changes everything. Mrs. Rodriguez's phone rings again. Different number. Pentagon area code. Her hands shake slightly as she answers. Federal Court Stenographer Rodriguez. Ma'am, this is Colonel Sarah Martinez, Pentagon Legal Affairs. We received notification that Colonel James Mitchell has been detained. The military connection sends shockwaves through her system. Pentagon involvement. This escalates beyond civil rights violations into national security territory. Yes, ma'am. He's being held at county detention. Colonel Mitchell holds top-secret clearance. His detention compromises ongoing federal operations. Mrs. Rodriguez glances around the courtroom. Patterson reviewing sentencing guidelines. Wilson preparing closing arguments for the afternoon docket. Neither man understands the magnitude of their mistake. "Ma'am, what are my instructions?" "Continue normal operations. Military police are coordinating with federal marshals. Situation will be resolved within the hour." The line goes dead. Mrs. Rodriguez stares at her phone. Pentagon involvement, military police, federal marshals. The cavalry arrives from multiple directions. Patterson's confidence radiates across the courtroom. He schedules Mitchell's preliminary hearing for maximum political impact. Evening news cycle. Campaign season publicity. Making examples of unpatriotic troublemakers. "Mrs. Rodriguez," he calls, "I want full transcripts of the Mitchell case expedited for media distribution." "Of course, Your Honor." She types the words while planning federal evidence preservation. Every transcript saved to multiple secure servers. Constitutional violations documented with bureaucratic precision. Wilson's phone buzzes with incoming calls, political supporters, media contacts. Everyone wants details about the patriotic prosecutor taking down veteran troublemaker. "The Mitchell case demonstrates our commitment to law and order," Wilson tells a reporter. "Military service doesn't excuse disruptive behavior." Mrs. Rodriguez continues typing, recording Wilson's statements for federal review, political grandstanding based on false assumptions, career-ending quotes preserved for posterity. Cruz's radio crackles with detention facility updates. Mitchell processed into general population. Strip searched. Photographed. Federal prosecutor treated like common criminal. "Transport confirms delivery," Cruz reports. "No incidents during transfer." Patterson nods satisfaction. Problem solved. Order restored. No idea that federal response teams mobilize across Washington. Mrs. Rodriguez's computer shows new email notifications. Federal Court Administration, Justice Department protocols, Pentagon communications, all marked urgent priority. She opens the first message. Federal Marshal Service. Asset protection protocols activated. Maintain operational security. Federal response coordinating. The second email comes from DOJ Director Chen's office. Judicial misconduct investigation accelerated. Preserve all documentation. Federal oversight imminent. Pentagon message arrives last. Colonel Mitchell's detention compromises national security operations. Military intervention authorized if necessary. The federal response builds like storm system. Multiple agencies coordinating. Constitutional crisis demanding immediate resolution. Patterson calls recess for lunch. Court resumes at 2 o'clock. Mitchell preliminary hearing scheduled for 4:30. He exits chambers with confident stride. Planning his political future. Unaware that federal marshals already coordinate his investigation. Wilson packs his briefcase. Afternoon meetings with campaign supporters. Victory celebration lunches. No idea that his prosecutorial career just ended. Cruz secures the courtroom. Standard security protocols. Routine afternoon procedures. Federal marshals will arrive as normal visitors. Mrs. Rodriguez saves her work to encrypted federal servers. Every transcript preserved. Every constitutional violation documented. Evidence chain secured for federal prosecution. Her phone shows new text message. Unknown number. Federal encryption. Federal response team in position. Maintain normal operations. Justice arrives at 1400 hours. She deletes the message. Federal communications leave no traces, but the timeline is set. Justice arrives at 2 o'clock. Federal authorities are now fully aware of the situation. 2 o'clock arrives with courthouse precision. Patterson returns from lunch refreshed and confident. Wilson adjusts his tie for afternoon media attention. Cruz checks his equipment for preliminary hearing theater. Mrs. Rodriguez watches through courthouse windows. Black SUVs park across the street. Tinted windows. Federal license plates. The cavalry arrives wearing business suits instead of uniforms. "Bring in the Mitchell prisoner," Patterson commands. Cruz coordinates with detention transport. Radio chatter fills the courtroom, standard prisoner movement protocols. No one notices the federal vehicles multiplying outside. Mitchell enters wearing orange jumpsuit and full restraints, waist chain, ankle shackles, handcuffs, maximum security for minimum threat. His military bearing unchanged despite humiliation. "Mr. Mitchell," Patterson says, "this preliminary hearing will determine if charges proceed to trial." "I understand, Your Honor." "Do you wish to enter additional pleas?" "I request permission to present evidence in my defense." Patterson's eyebrows arch with annoyance. "You already entered your plea. This is preliminary hearing, not trial." "I invoke my right to present exculpatory evidence." The legal terminology surprises Wilson. Defendants don't usually know words like exculpatory. Mrs. Rodriguez's fingers dance across her stenotype machine, recording precise language for federal review. "What evidence?" Patterson asks. "Audio recordings from the Memorial Day ceremony, financial documentation regarding seating arrangements, federal civil rights statutes relevant to these charges." Each item hits like precision strike. Wilson's confident smile wavers. Cruz shifts nervously near the door. Mrs. Rodriguez recognizes prosecutorial presentation skills. "Where would you obtain such evidence?" Patterson demands. "Same methods used to document systematic bias in judicial sentencing patterns." "Sorry." The threat hangs in courtroom air like smoke. Patterson's face reddens slightly. Wilson fumbles through his papers. Cruz speaks quietly into his radio. "What are you suggesting?" Patterson asks. "I'm suggesting this court demonstrates patterns that warrant federal investigation." Mrs. Rodriguez types rapidly. Federal investigation mentioned again. Mitchell knows exactly what buttons to push, like prosecutor building case piece by piece. "You're in no position to threaten anyone," Patterson says. "Constitutional facts aren't threats." "What constitutional facts?" "Denial of counsel, excessive bail, systematic bias in charging decisions, federal civil rights violations disguised as local law enforcement." Wilson objects from his table. "Your Honor, the defendant is clearly coached in legal terminology designed to disrupt proceedings." "By whom?" Patterson asks. "Unknown co-conspirators, professional agitators with anti-government agenda." Mitchell's expression doesn't change, letting them reveal their paranoia for the record. Mrs. Rodriguez recognizes tactical patience, like attorney allowing opposing counsel to impeach themselves. "I request permission to contact federal authorities," Mitchell says. "Denied. This is local jurisdiction." Federal jurisdiction supersedes local authority in civil rights cases. What civil rights cases? The systematic violation of constitutional protections in this courthouse. Patterson's confidence wavers. Mitchell's knowledge extends beyond typical defendant understanding. The legal precision suggests professional training. "Are you a lawyer?" Patterson asks. "I have legal training." "What kind of legal training?" "Federal courthouse experience." The answer reveals nothing while implying everything. Wilson looks confused. Cruz adjusts his equipment belt. Mrs. Rodriguez saves her transcript to secure servers. Through courthouse windows, more federal vehicles arrive. Unmarked sedans, government plates, professional surveillance teams taking positions. "Mr. Mitchell," Patterson says carefully, "explain your federal courthouse experience." "I've worked in federal courtrooms for 15 years. "In what capacity?" "Legal capacity." Patterson's frustration builds. Each answer technically responsive but strategically evasive, like deposing hostile witness who knows courtroom rules. "Are you employed by the federal government?" "I work for the Department of Justice." The revelation explodes through courtroom silence. Wilson's papers scatter. Cruz's hand moves toward his radio. Mrs. Rodriguez's typing pauses momentarily. "In what capacity?" Patterson asks quietly. "Prosecutorial capacity." "You're a federal prosecutor?" "Yes." The simple word transforms everything. Power dynamics shift instantly. Patterson grips his gavel like life preserver. Wilson stares at his evidence folders with growing horror. Cruz's radio crackles with urgent transmission. Federal marshals requesting courthouse access. Official business. The bailiff looks at Patterson for instructions. The judge's face has gone pale. Federal prosecutor in orange jumpsuit. Federal marshals at the door. Constitutional crisis developing in real time. Your Honor, Mrs. Rodriguez says quietly, I have Director Chen from DOJ on hold, requesting immediate contact. The phone receiver sits on her desk like smoking gun. Federal authority waiting for acknowledgement. Patterson stares at the device like it might explode. Mitchell's next question will expose everything that matters. Mrs. Rodriguez stands with professional dignity. 27 years of courthouse service earned her respect from judges and attorneys alike. Her voice cuts through stunned silence. Your Honor, I request permission to address the court. Patterson's attention snaps toward her workstation. Court stenographers rarely speak during proceedings unless requesting clarification. His face shows confusion mixed with growing panic. What is it, Mrs. Rodriguez? She approaches the bench with measured steps, federal documents in her hands, official seals visible even from distance. Her professional bearing commands attention. Your Honor, I have verified information regarding the defendant's identity and federal status. Wilson objects reflexively. Your Honor, the stenographer has no standing to present evidence. Overruled. Patterson's voice sounds strained. Continue, Mrs. Rodriguez. She unfolds the documents with deliberate precision. Each page reveals another layer of Mitchell's credentials. Federal prosecutor identification, Civil Rights Division assignment, active duty status confirmed by multiple agencies. I contacted the Department of Justice to verify Mr. Mitchell's background, she explains. He is an active federal prosecutor assigned to civil rights violations and judicial misconduct investigations. The words hit like grenades. Wilson's confident expression crumbles. Cruz's hand freezes over his radio. Patterson grips the bench edge until his knuckles turn white. Furthermore, Mrs. Rodriguez continues, I have Director Sarah Chen from the Civil Rights Division holding on line 1. She gestures toward her phone. The device sits like smoking gun on her desk. Federal authority waiting for acknowledgement. Constitutional crisis demanding immediate resolution. This courthouse has been under federal investigation for systematic civil rights violations, she adds quietly. Mr. Mitchell's detention constitutes obstruction of federal justice. The revelation transforms courtroom atmosphere completely. Power dynamics reverse in single moment. The chained defendant suddenly carries more authority than everyone else combined. Patterson stares at the phone like it contains explosive device. 18 months of federal investigation. Constitutional violations documented. Career-ending scrutiny from Washington. Wilson attempts damage control. Your Honor, even if true, this doesn't change the evidence against him. But his voice lacks conviction. Federal prosecutor credentials trump local authority. Constitutional protection overrides municipal prejudice. Cruz's radio crackles with federal frequencies. Federal marshals entering courthouse, requesting immediate judicial contact. The cavalry arrives through front doors. Official badges, federal authority, justice delayed becoming justice delivered. The full scope of Mitchell's authority is about to be unleashed. Mitchell's restraints fall away as Mrs. Rodriguez unlocks them with Cruz's own keys. The chains hit the floor with metallic finality. He stands with renewed dignity, federal authority no longer hidden beneath orange cotton. Your Honor, Mitchell says, his voice carrying prosecutorial command, I am Colonel James Mitchell, United States Army, retired, Medal of Honor recipient, current federal prosecutor with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Each credential detonates through courtroom silence. Patterson's face drains color. Wilson's papers slip from trembling hands. Cruz backs toward the exit like cornered animal. I received the Medal of Honor for actions in Kandahar province, Mitchell continues, leading rescue operations under enemy fire, protecting American soldiers and Afghan civilians from Taliban execution. The stenographer's machine clicks frantically. Mrs. Rodriguez captures every word for federal record. Her phone still holds Director Chen on hold, federal authority waiting for justice. After military retirement, I prosecuted war crimes for the Judge Advocate General Corps. American officers who tortured prisoners, soldiers who violated Geneva Convention protocols, military personnel who dishonored their oath to protect the innocent. The revelations stack like evidence pyramid. Each layer reveals more credibility, more authority, more power to dismantle corrupt local systems. Since joining the Civil Rights Division, I have prosecuted judges for systematic bias, district attorneys for evidence suppression, law enforcement officials for constitutional violations. Patterson's gavel sits motionless in his grip. The weapon of judicial authority suddenly feels dangerous to wield. Federal oversight has arrived wearing orange jumpsuit. For 18 months, this courthouse has been under federal investigation, Mitchell announces, triggered by citizen complaints about racial disparities in sentencing, statistical evidence of constitutional violations, systematic denial of equal protection under law. Wilson stands shakily. Your Honor, I object to this entire— Sit down, Mitchell commands with prosecutorial authority. You are both subjects of ongoing federal investigation. Any statements you make can and will be used in federal court. The Miranda warning hits like constitutional sledgehammer. Cruz's hand freezes over his radio. Federal marshals don't respond to local bailiff emergency calls. Mitchell removes his orange jumpsuit to reveal federal credentials underneath. Badge and identification card. Justice Department authority. Constitutional power exercised with precision. The Memorial Day incident was federal surveillance operation, he explains, documenting how community leaders treat Gold Star families, recording conversations about payment structures for patriotic privilege. Mrs. Rodriguez hands Patterson the phone. Director Chen's voice crackles through speaker mode. Judge Patterson, you are holding a federal prosecutor on fabricated charges. This constitutes obstruction of justice. Federal authority speaks directly from Washington. No more hiding behind local jurisdiction. Constitutional accountability arrives with digital clarity. I have complete audio recordings of rally organizers, Mitchell continues. Gold Star mothers charged $300 for front row seating. Veterans' families treated as profit centers at their own memorial ceremony. The evidence stacks in devastating layers. Audio recordings, financial documentation. 18 months of federal investigation triggered by systematic constitutional violations. Furthermore, I have statistical analysis of Judge Patterson's sentencing patterns. African American defendants receive sentences 37% longer than white defendants for identical crimes. Hispanic defendants face bail amounts 42% higher than similarly situated white defendants. The mathematics of bias explode through courtroom air. Federal databases reveal systematic discrimination disguised as judicial discretion. Constitutional violations documented with scientific precision. Federal marshals announce themselves in courthouse lobby. United States Marshal Service. Building is under federal jurisdiction pending civil rights investigation. Their footsteps echo in marble hallways. Black uniforms with silver badges. Authority that supersedes local power structures completely. Bailiff Cruz was dismissed from military service for excessive force against prisoners, Mitchell reveals. Currently employed despite background check disqualifying him from law enforcement positions. Cruz's secret history surfaces like submarine breaking water. Dishonorable discharge, criminal background, systematic failure of local hiring protocols. District Attorney Wilson has suppressed exculpatory evidence in 43 cases involving minority defendants, Mitchell continues. Federal investigation reveals pattern of prosecutorial misconduct spanning 4 years. Wilson's political future crumbles in real time. Federal oversight, civil rights violations, career-ending prosecutions waiting in Washington. Mitchell's phone connects to 3 agencies simultaneously. Pentagon confirms his Medal of Honor status. DOJ verifies his prosecutor credentials. FBI opens real-time civil rights investigation. Colonel Mitchell, Director Chen's voice fills the courtroom through speakerphone. Are you injured or in immediate danger? No, ma'am. Federal evidence has been preserved. Constitutional violations documented. Subjects identified for prosecution. The orange jumpsuit lies crumpled on courtroom floor. Federal authority stands revealed in business suit and prosecutor credentials. Justice arrives disguised as prisoner. Judge Patterson, District Attorney Wilson, Mitchell announces formally. You are both subjects of federal civil rights investigation. I recommend immediate legal counsel. Federal marshals enter through courthouse doors. Their radios coordinate evidence seizure protocols, computer servers, case files, financial records, everything preserved for federal prosecution. Mrs. Rodriguez, Mitchell says, your courage and professional integrity will be commended in federal report. Civil service employees who uphold constitutional principles deserve recognition. She nods with quiet dignity. 27 years of service vindicated in single moment. Truth triumphs over institutional corruption. In the gallery, veterans stand collectively. Old soldiers recognizing justice, finally served. Young soldiers witnessing system working correctly. Their respectful applause builds slowly, appropriately. The federal investigation continues, Mitchell explains. Oversight will ensure constitutional protection for all defendants, regardless of race, religion, or political beliefs. Cruz attempts to flee through rear exit. Federal marshals intercept him calmly. Not as arrestee, but as witness requiring protection during investigation. Justice moves with measured precision. Patterson's career dissolves like sugar in rain. Federal investigation. Constitutional violations. Judicial misconduct documented with bureaucratic thoroughness. The gavel sits silent on his bench. Wilson's phone buzzes with urgent calls, media requests, political damage control, campaign contributors demanding explanations. His prosecutorial license hangs by a thread of federal patience. Federal oversight team arrives within 30 minutes, Director Chen announces. Courthouse records will be preserved as evidence. All current cases subject to constitutional review. The marble courthouse echoes with federal authority. Democracy working correctly after months of systematic failure. Constitutional protection restored through proper channels. Mitchell straightens his federal prosecutor badge. Medal of Honor recipient. Civil rights defender. Constitutional protector. The mission remains constant despite changing uniforms. Federal marshals are already in the building. Federal marshals escort Patterson and Wilson from the courthouse. Not in handcuffs, but under protective custody during investigation. Justice moves with constitutional precision, not vengeful theater. All courthouse operations will continue under federal oversight, Director Chen announces through speakerphone. Current cases reviewed for constitutional compliance, defendants' rights protected during transition. Mitchell adjusts his federal prosecutor credentials. The orange jumpsuit lies forgotten on courtroom floor, symbol of false imprisonment discarded like costume after performance. Mrs. Rodriguez, he says, your transcript preservation ensured constitutional violations were documented. Federal prosecutors depend on professionals like you to maintain justice system integrity. She nods with quiet pride. 27 years of service validated in crucial moment. Truth triumphs when honest people refuse to stay silent. The veterans in gallery approach Mitchell with respectful dignity. Old soldiers who served in Vietnam. Middle-aged soldiers from Desert Storm. Young soldiers carrying invisible wounds from Afghanistan and Iraq. Colonel, says an elderly man wearing VFW cap, we knew something wasn't right, but we didn't know how to fight back. Fighting back requires understanding the system, Mitchell explains. Constitutional protection exists for everyone. Federal oversight ensures justice applies equally. Federal investigators arrive with evidence preservation equipment, computer forensics teams, document analysis specialists. Constitutional violations require scientific documentation, not emotional responses. Cruz sits quietly in corner chair, his dishonorable discharge exposed, criminal background revealed. But federal justice focuses on systematic problems, not individual vengeance. Bailiff Cruz will be reassigned pending background review, Mitchell announces. Federal hiring standards apply to all courthouse personnel. The courthouse flag flies at full height outside. Red, white, and blue fabric moves in afternoon breeze. Symbol of democracy protected by those who understand its true meaning. Mitchell's phone buzzes with Pentagon communication. Colonel, Medal of Honor recipients require protective protocols during federal operations. Negative, he responds. Standard prosecutor safety measures sufficient. Constitutional protection applies equally to all citizens. Federal oversight establishes temporary courthouse administration. Constitutional lawyers, civil rights specialists, professional prosecutors trained in equal protection principles. Judge Patterson's cases will be reviewed by federal magistrates, Director Chen explains. Defendants denied constitutional protection receive new hearings with adequate counsel. Justice delayed becomes justice delivered through proper channels. Federal resources ensure constitutional compliance without political theater. Wilson's office undergoes evidence preservation, case files, email servers, financial records. Systematic prosecutorial misconduct requires comprehensive documentation. District Attorney Wilson's suppressed evidence will be provided to defense attorneys, Mitchell announces. Federal transparency ensures constitutional discovery rights. Mrs. Rodriguez continues typing official transcripts. Her stenotype machine records constitutional restoration in real time. Democracy working correctly deserves permanent documentation. The courthouse marble echoes with federal authority, not oppressive control, but constitutional protection. Justice system functioning as founders intended. Federal investigation will continue for 6 months, Mitchell explains. Systematic bias requires systematic solutions. Constitutional compliance takes time to establish properly. Local news crews arrive outside courthouse. Federal investigation draws media attention. Constitutional stories matter more than political theater. This courthouse exemplifies broader constitutional challenges, Mitchell tells reporters. Federal oversight ensures equal protection under law for all Americans. The veterans slowly disperse from gallery. Justice witnessed. Constitutional protection restored. System working correctly for decorated soldiers and ordinary citizens alike. Gold Star families deserve front row seats at every memorial ceremony, Mitchell states. Patriotism means protecting constitutional rights, not selling premium access to grief. Federal marshals coordinate evidence preservation with professional efficiency. Constitutional violations documented. Civil rights restored. Justice system repaired through proper channels. Mitchell's Medal of Honor citation hangs in Pentagon hallway. Bronze star gleaming under fluorescent lights. Heroism continues in courtrooms and federal investigations. True patriots defend constitutional principles for everyone, he explains. Not just those who share their political beliefs or skin color. The stenographer's machine falls silent. Official transcripts completed. Constitutional violations documented for federal prosecution. Truth preserved in permanent record. Cruz's replacement arrives within hours. Honorably discharged veteran. Clean background check. Professional training in constitutional protection protocols. Courthouse security will reflect constitutional values, Mitchell announces. Equal treatment under law requires equal protection in practice. Federal oversight team establishes constitutional compliance protocols. Equal sentencing guidelines. Transparent bail procedures. Adequate counsel for all defendants regardless of economic status. Constitutional protection costs money, Mitchell explains. Federal resources ensure justice isn't rationed by local budgets. Mrs. Rodriguez receives federal commendation for professional courage. 27 years of service recognized by constitutional authorities. Truth-telling rewarded instead of punished. The courthouse restoration takes months, not days. Constitutional compliance requires systematic change. Federal patience ensures permanent solutions over political quick fixes. Justice belongs to everyone, Mitchell concludes, not just those who wear judicial robes or prosecutorial badges. Federal investigation expands to neighboring jurisdictions. Constitutional violations spread like infections. Systematic problems require systematic solutions. Mitchell returns to Washington for new assignments, civil rights cases across America. Constitutional protection remains full-time mission. The courthouse flag continues flying. Democracy protected by federal oversight. Constitutional principles stronger than local prejudice. Real patriots protect constitutional rights. Mitchell's final words echo through marble halls. Even when protecting those rights requires challenging local authority. Federal justice moves with constitutional precision. Truth triumphs over prejudice. Democracy works when patriots defend principles over politics. The gavel rests silent on federal judges' bench. Constitutional authority speaks louder than local bias. Equal protection under law restored through proper channels. Mrs. Rodriguez's transcripts join federal archives. Constitutional violations documented for history. Truth preserved for future generations. Justice delayed becomes justice delivered. Constitutional protection restored. Democracy working correctly. True patriotism defends constitutional principles for all Americans, not political privilege for few. If you found this story of justice and constitutional protection compelling, subscribe to Beat Stories for more true accounts of ordinary people standing up for what's right. Hit that notification bell to never miss stories that prove the system works when patriots defend principles over politics. Because real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear stenographer badges and federal prosecutor credentials, fighting for constitutional rights one case at a time.
One story can wake up a crowd. One moment of clarity can crack years of silence. At Beat Stories, we find those moments, and we share them loud and clear. If this made you think, hit subscribe. This is just the beginning.